I'll tell you the story about Clay's daughter with Jeter.
Oh, it would be nice if I was recording this.
Yeah, it would be.
Good luck.
I couldn't quite understand. Where do you want to stop this up?
Whenever you're ready, Dean. Yep.
Hey.
Alright, that's enough of this crap.
That's enough. 14.
You ready?
Whenever you are. And welcome to another Sunday edition of the Sports Skillet Radio Show. I am joined in the studio by
Jeff.
Ethan. Larry.
All right. And we'll begin by talking a little of college football here. We had an incident with a college quarterback all week, Jameis Winston, and apparently he's gotten himself into a little hot water.
What do you think, Ethan?
I think he's an idiot. Plain and simple. He's an idiot. He has a good arm, but that's about it.
You know, talent doesn't equal brain sometimes, and just the kid's got to stop making stupid decisions. Is really what it boils down to. I actually just heard for the first time this morning what it was that he said, and it's
You're welcome, by the way.
It's pretty. We can't repeat it on the radio, but it's pretty disgusting. But that in itself is not a terrible thing. But it's just everything on top of one another. All kind of adds up to, you know, just is this kid mature? Does he have what it takes to be a leader in the profession that he's looking to get into? And everything else that's going on in the NFL, I'm not sure. You know, I think it's bad timing for him because I think in the next couple of years you're going to see owners and GMs be a little more selective in who they want to draft. And you think it was bad when Dez Bryant was asked if his mother was a prostitute. I think the question some of these draft picks are going to get in the next couple of years are going to be even worse.
It's just, you know, it's the guy has a lot of talent. Obviously, he had a lot of success given to him at a very early age by winning a national championship in his freshman year of eligibility. So, you know, he had a lot of success early. A lot of times you can either do one of two things. You can go straight to your head and blow up your head, or it can, or you actually imagine you're more mature for that age. And it seems like it's the latter that kind of blew up his head. He became a big man on campus. You know, he is Florida State. I mean, that's it. I mean, he is what Florida State is all about. He is, you know, about winning another national championship this year. Don't know if he'll get it. I think that, you know, there's obviously some other teams that are pretty good. Alabama looks pretty good. Certainly, you're going to see some of these other teams come up and challenge them as they move into the playoff. But you know, it's really a sad thing when you look at a guy with that kind of talent. And you're right when you say that. The GMs now are going to start looking at character a lot more, and as they look at character, it's going to be they're going to downgrade these guys more than they have in the past when it comes to drafting. So, I mean, Marcus Mariota was going to be the #1 quarterback taken off the board, I think. So, you know, I mean, he's just a flat-out stud. He may be the next Andrew Luck. Coming down the road. So out of Oregon, which seems to be the hot place to get people these days, whether coaches or players. So at this point, you know, I think that his stock's going to be hurt, and you know, this just piles on to the incidents that he's already had in his career, and just tests, I think, the patience of what the NFL is going to have to deal with.
Well, I think, you know, two things. First of all, Jameis is a sophomore, So
Red shirt. So
a red shirt,
right.
Yeah. Regardless, he has eligibility.
yeah.
So, he's going to have to weigh the risk here, right, of injury. But
I don't think he's going to come out this year.
It's probably in his best interest not to come out this year and try to rehabilitate his image and put up stats next year, right? And Ethan, you could probably talk more to this in a minute, but I don't know what the draft class looks like for next year as far as quarterbacks go or overall. But I know you said this morning you're already looking at 2016 mocks. But here's my other point is, and this has been going on for decades already, that when an athlete, a youth athlete, shows promise and talent, they are coddled from the time they're 10 or 11 years old. And this goes for baseball, football, basketball, right? And it's gotten worse and worse over the years. And these kids are coddled through everything, through school, through high school, through college, through life. Even and many of them, particularly in football and basketball, come from low-income families and inner cities and things like that. But they're coddled all the way through. They're constantly told how great they are. They can do no wrong. Many of them make it through high school without having to do any work. There's a infamous story of Antonio Cromartie getting accepted to Florida State with a 5th grade reading level.
Exactly.
Things like that. So you take these kids and you put them into situations where they have power and they are not mature. They don't know how to act. They think they can do whatever it is that they want because they have always gotten away with it. And then they go from being, handled like that and no money to being a professional athlete making millions of dollars, and money doesn't buy you any sense of anything. All it does is give you more power. So
exactly.
there needs to be a better system for teaching these kids how to live life.
They need to find a happy medium between coddling them and Todd Marinovich. Because if you remember, Todd Marinovich everybody knew the story since he was like 2 days old. His father was pushing him, working out, making sure everything was perfect about him so he could be the best quarterback. And then because he resented his father so much, essentially, it all went to hell. So if we can find a middle ground where they're pushed, but not over pushed, it would probably yield the best results.
Right.
I agree, and it just shows how, to me, mature Jameis Winston is when he came out onto the field in full dressed in uniform when he knew he was suspended before the game. He knew he wasn't going to be playing in the game, and yet he came out full uniform, and just the sight of Jimbo Fisher, after he turned around and saw Jameis Winston in the full uniform, he just had that exasperated look on his face, like, what next?
But that also leads to there's got to be some kind of institutional control there. You can't now, whether or not it's Jimbo Fisher or somebody else. Somebody had to have seen him get dressed and walk out, right?
Coordinator,
somebody from the university who should have had the sense to say, buddy, that's not such a good idea.
Exactly.
I'm just, I think there's a problem with control in definitely in college. I understand that there's a lot going on and the programs are huge and stuff like that, but there's got to be better controls over these things.
In a world where common sense is less and less common, probably nobody thought of it until Jimbo Fisher. That's the problem.
And that's a problem.
Exactly. And speaking of control, that leads us right into Roger Goodell, or the lack thereof.
We're going to talk sports at some point, right?
We are. We're easing our way into it.
Just check.
The Goodell press conference was a good effort for him to try and change the narrative. It was a good attempt by him, I would say, to try and change the narrative. I mean, when you're in a crisis, what you want to do, honestly, is try to, change the narrative, try to get people to look back on your sport in a favorable fashion, and try to get people to move on. In this case, I don't think Roger Goodell really achieved any of that. If anything, it left me with more questions than any kind of answers to what's going on. You look in Baltimore as to what's happening right now with Ray Rice in terms of the report now about Ray Rice having, possibly told them, the whole story up front, and them possibly knowing about, what was on the tape and so forth. It's just, like I said, it's just like you can't dig your way out of it. It's like a grave that just keeps getting deeper and deeper for the NFL, and Roger Goodell really doesn't have any answers to not only containing this firestorm that has come upon the NFL, but to do it. But at the same time, it hasn't affected ratings. I don't think that the NFL is sort of a Teflon machine, because if you're a sponsor, do you really want to get out of this money-making machine? I mean, sponsors will tell you this, that the NFL is great because people can't fast forward through commercials. That people are going to watch commercials because it's live. It's live TV, so people can't fast forward through the commercials. So it is the best way for them to get their advertisements out there. That's why they flock to this NFL, plus the fact it gets awful ratings. So as long as the ratings are going through and people aren't turning off their TVs, and I don't think a lot of people, based on this kind of thing to this point, are yet turning off their TVs. I mean, you had one sponsor, obviously, aboard, with the breast cancer awareness, but
and Radisson pulled out.
Right, that's
and Procter and Gamble.
Yeah. Oh wow, Radisson pulled out.
Right.
Radisson pulled out just as the Vikings had a press conference with their name right behind them. The statement came out exactly the same time, because the Radisson's name is on the Vikings board behind in the press conference. They pulled out. But this goes back to what I said last week, right?
Right.
Was that there's not going to be any major change until there's a financial impact, and it's hard to have a financial impact when the thing is so powerful, right? People are not going to stop watching the games. They're not going to stop buying merchandise, right, and stuff like that.
So you know what? Out of all the major sports, football is the most likely to lose their viewers because of this. Because football is the sport where it is easiest to get it's easiest to get something similar. You can watch college football, and the game is almost exactly the same as the NFL. It's not as good. No one's saying it's as good, but the game itself is very similar. You go to baseball, minor league baseball is not the same. You go to basketball, college basketball is not the same. So
I understand. I don't think that's going to affect
I don't think it's going to happen. But where would happen, it would be football.
I like in the NFL to a drug, and we're addicted to it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's caffeine. I mean, it's what people live for in a given week. To get their minds off things, to have an escape, and to do that. In the NFL, they wait all week to basically. Now again, I mean, obviously the NFL is on 3 nights a week right now, and they've taken over Monday nights. Now they're taking over another big advertising night on Thursday nights, and now they have Sunday nights. So 3 big primetime slots are taken over by the NFL at this point. I mean, Friday and Saturday nights are the worst time for ratings. But if you look at the other nights, the other huge nights, I mean, movies, everything comes out on Friday, so advertisers want to get out about the new releases and so forth on Thursday nights. It's just, the NFL has sort of taken over all these big slots, and, and the fact that CBS has actually moved, like the Big Bang Theory and their big lineup to accommodate the NFL and to say we want the NFL on this slot speaks to how much they realize that, this is where they have to go, especially when you look at the fact that the NFL is live and people can't, fast forward through the commercials.
Well, this whole Thursday night thing is a whole another subject to talk about, because I think we saw evidence this past Thursday that Thursday night games are horrible, a bad idea. And honestly, if the NFL, which what they had been preaching the last few years about safety, were really concerned about safety, they would not be playing Thursday nights because it's a short week. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. I think here's one of the problems with Goodell with every time Goodell speaks. The past 2 times Goodell has come out and had a press conference. The first time he came out and said, we didn't have the tape, we didn't know. And immediately after, there were reports that they had the tape. Then he comes out and he says, then he comes out this week and and says again, we didn't know this, we didn't know that, and Ray Rice wasn't completely honest with us and stuff like that. And immediately, I mean, not 5 minutes after, there's an ESPN Outside the Lines report that says Ray Rice was extremely honest with them. They had this information, and that there's these text messages from the owner of the Ravens to Ray Rice, basically trying to get him to hush and offer him a job when this all bowls over. It's piling on, one on top of the other, on top of the other. Every time he speaks, he gets up and either he says something that's not the entire truth, or he just talks in circles, and a report comes out immediately after negating what he says. So unless they're going to come out and give us the entire truth to the matter, he's got to stop speaking. The problem is, every time he stops speaking, everybody's calling for his head because he's not giving information. So
well, I think this is far worse than steroids in baseball. I mean, this is, baseball actually got pounded. I mean, absolutely got piled on. Congress got involved, and it took Congress actually getting involved for baseball to move and get the steroid policy that they ended up getting. But in this case, this is far worse than what Bud Selig had to face in terms of music, in terms of what's going on, because this is domestic violence. This is not something that's personal. I mean, steroids is kind of a personal kind of thing, your personal choice. This is something that's kind of far worse because it's domestic violence, and it's just, like I said, it's just kind of, and you have a lot of, now again, some people point to the fact that this is like 0.1% of the players who actually suit up in the NFL are getting, so a lot of the players are getting, so everybody's getting lapped into this, and all the players getting lapped into this bad group when it's a very small fraction of what's going on in the league. But still, it's when you have one of your best players involved, that's when it really starts. That's when the firestorm really starts to kick up, and that's essentially what they got when obviously you heard about the child beating out there in Minnesota.
Here's where it does compare to the steroid situation. Is this has been going on for years, right? It has been ignored by the league and the owners for years. Very similar steroids, right? It's not until the biggest in the game are in trouble for it where there's any impact, right? It's been happening for years. There have been stories that hold drunk driving, drugs, all that stuff, and domestic violence in particular has been a huge problem, particularly in the NFL, for a very long time. And nobody's really cared about it until it was Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, right? Which are two of the biggest names in the game right now. Adrian Peterson is probably is probably in the top 5 biggest names in the NFL today.
And with baseball, was McGuire, Sosa, and Bonds.
Correct. Right. So that's where there's parallels in these situations. But yeah, I would agree with you. This is a much bigger headache for Goodell than the steroid thing was for Zeke.
Very true. I completely agree with you guys. And it's something that the NFL is going to have to deal with for quite some time going forward. It's not anything that's going away either.
Can we talk some football?
Absolutely can.
I mean, we had a game. We had the Eagles obviously playing on Monday night, and I'm still trying to figure out, Jay, how the Eagles were managed to pull that game out. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still scratching my head about that. But somehow they managed to luckily beat luck. Luckily, I think that's how I would say it.
Yeah. I got to watch that game on a flight going out west. I don't know how they pulled it off.
No.
I don't. But I think it goes back to, again, what we were talking about last week is, Chip Kelly's system just works, right? I mean, it wears you down. They obviously wore the defense down, and that helped them move the ball. It works. That's the way it works. And, it again goes back to, is Nick Foles as great of a quarterback as it seems, or is it just that Chip Kelly's offense is a great situation for a quarterback to be in?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that it's a system he's in, and I think that he's a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he's not Drew Brees, he's not Peyton Manning, but he's at the if you put him in if you're to rank quarterbacks in tiers, he's probably in tier 2, in probably that tier 2 class right now. You'd have to put him in that class because the guy wins. I mean, the guy just wins games. Right. I mean, however you want to say it. I mean, the guy, lost, I think it was 2 starts last season. So, the guy just seems to find ways of, winning. He's a winning quarterback. I mean, that's just the way it is. Whether you get lucky in a couple of games or not, luck is, a residue of having the ability to go out there and lead your team out there. So and get and put points on the board and not turn over the ball. He did turn over the ball in week 1 and got away with it. Obviously, this week he didn't turn over the ball nearly as much, and that really helped him, as Luck did throw the interception late. Now that was disputed interception, but Luck, they ruled it an interception, and the Eagles went down the field. But how in the world, if you're the Indianapolis Colts, can you in a tie game, and you have the ball and you're on your own 15 or 16-yard line, I do believe, how can you do 2 runs and then a pass? Yeah. When you're Andrew Luck, that would not happen with Aaron Rodgers. That would not happen with Peyton Manning. That wouldn't happen with Drew Brees. Mm-hmm. So what it means is they got highly conservative. The coordinator got highly conservative. Maybe he got a little skittish with the pick that Luck threw. But if you have Andrew Luck and you believe this guy is one of the best quarterbacks in the league and wants to move into that class, you got to put the ball in his hands and drive down the field. Absolutely. Because the result is what happened. They didn't move the ball, and all the Eagles had to do was gain about 15 yards to kick a field goal and win.
Yeah. And I'm interested to see how they play this week. At home, 6.5-point favorites against Washington. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm a big Cousins fan.
I like Andrew Cousins. Yeah, he's good.
Kirk Cousins. I think he's the real deal, and I think he's the quarterback of the future for the Redskins. The glass guy is going to be on the shelf a lot in RG3. He's just, he dislocated his ankle. He wasn't even touched, right? So I think, everybody said, a couple of years ago when the Redskins drafted 2 quarterbacks, what are they doing? Well, I think they know what they were doing. You should give Frank Shanahan credit for something.
Absolutely.
I think this is the guy that Gruden wants, as his quarterback. I don't think he wanted, RG3. I think that was the owner kind of pushing it on because they were forced to do it. I mean, they gave up 10, I think it was 10 years worth of draft picks.
Something like that.
How many years of draft picks to get, to move up to number 2 to draft RG3? So, if they're, they can't cut the cord that quickly.
If RG3 is a bust, if he turns out to be a bust,
and
who turns out to be the biggest bust? Which is the worst deal? That deal to move up to get RG3, or when Ditka moved up to get Ricky Williams?
I'm going to say RG3.
I'm going to say RG3.
Because Ricky Williams was that great. He didn't get injured or anything. What hurt him was weed.
Yeah.
Because he became...
Which, actually, if he played today, now with the new policy...
Exactly. So
he was a man ahead of his time.
Yes.
And also, Dickey gave up a draft, which is a horrible idea. But...
And then went on Sports Illustrated wearing a wedding dress.
Well, no, Ricky Williams. But it's still a bad idea.
Yeah.
But he gave up a draft, which is a horrible idea. The GM of Washington gave up 3 drafts, essentially. He gave 3 first-round picks.
Isn't that George Allen's kid, right?
Who knows? Who cares? He's going to get fired soon. I'd rather give up 1 year's draft than give up 3 first-round picks, unless it's like draft day type deal, which was just, if that happened in real life, that's genius. But.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go back to I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's when you talk about the second-tier quarterbacks, he's right up there.
I think so.
He's right up there.
I think so. I mean, I think I'll throw out Mark Sanchez. I mean, I know you're gonna laugh at me, but
let me tell you something. I think half the league would throw out Mark Sanchez.
I know
you don't mean throw him out that way.
Exactly. You're gonna laugh at me, but I think in Chip Kelly's system, Mark Sanchez as a backup quarterback is really good. And
I think in Chip Kelly's system, you as a backup quarterback would be pretty good.
Exactly.
I could be.
Well,
yeah.
Let's not get crazy.
Jamarcus Russell.
Jamarcus
Russell would be a top 5 quarterback in Chip Kelly's system.
I don't know about that.
You'd have to lay off what's that drug with the cough syrup that he was messing with? Purple Dragon? Purple Dragon.
But
maybe that makes him move faster.
Now, do we think Deshaun Jackson is going to play today? Because that could be a key.
Oh, of course, Andrew. Of course, Deshaun's going to play. You know, I mean, that's he has to. I mean, this is his big revenge game. This is his blood. I mean, this is this is him trying to tell Chip Kelly, boy, you were wrong. I think Kirk Cousins could get him the ball. I mean, I think that this could this could really be a blessing for Deshaun to have Kirk Cousins, under center and throwing the ball deep and trying to, because I don't think the Eagles secondary is terrific. So I think that there's moves to be made. I think there's moves. I think Deshaun can make some plays out there. And,
I think if you
get a couple scores.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about a guy, I don't think there's anybody in the league with a bigger chip on their shoulder at the moment than Deshaun Jackson, right? And in a better position at the moment, if he's healthy enough to play, than Deshaun Jackson, because when Deshaun Jackson is in a game with RG3 is a story, right? And Kirk Cousins is a story. But the focus will be on Deshaun Jackson, right? So he can be the star of that game against the team that threw him in the garbage, right? So it's just, I think nobody's in a better position this week than Deshaun Jackson. So he's got to be out there. I mean, did they list him as questionable, probable?
Probable, I believe I think he's probable.
So I mean,
all 4 of us looked this up.
Yes.
Modern technology.
Yes.
So I think I mean he's got it. He's got it.
But then again, if he plays, you run the risk of his shoulder getting jammed at the line of scrimmage and him missing maybe 3 weeks.
Well, that's football. I mean, you can't worry about a guy getting hurt further. I mean, that's football. I mean, you're going to go out there. You're going to try. If the guy is healthy enough to go out there, feels like he can go, he's going to go. I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, you don't save yourself. This is not baseball where you're kind of take a couple days off.
Yeah, 465 games.
I mean, if you can, wheel yourself out in the field, you wheel yourself out. You give it your best shot. So, I would be surprised if he was not on that field. I would go so far as to say shocked if he was not out there playing against the Eagles.
I would tend to agree with that. I think this game is going to be huge. I think it's going to be a homecoming for Deshaun, and I gotta think that if he can play at all, if he's healthy enough, I think Deshaun will be out there on the field. He may be limited in the amount of snaps that he plays, but I think Deshaun will be out there. Do we have a prediction for the game?
Well, I think Eagles. I think the Eagles have more talent. I mean, I just think that the Eagles have more talent at this point. Although I will say that the Washington defense did step up against Jacksonville, although Jacksonville's not an NFL team anymore. But 10 sacks against
NFL team.
a Tampa Bay NFL team.
That's the other thing we need to get into.
Look at their jerseys. No, they look like an AFL team.
Yeah.
But I'll take the Eagles. I don't know that they cover the spread though. I'll say that.
No.
That could be interesting.
Well, they always play close games. Washington
Yeah.
Eagles tend to play close games, so I would say it's like a field goal type.
I mean,
game.
I'm taking them. I'm taking them against the spread, but I think that's going to be close.
What's the spread?
6.5.
I'm taking the Eagles to cover that easily.
All right. I got 'em. I mean, I took them. I took them in my pool to cover the
I
spread.
think they're going to win by at least 2 scores.
Oof.
Maybe not 2 touchdowns, but 2
Okay.
scores. So
All right.
maybe they win by 10.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna make note of that so we can talk about this later.
Go for it.
And of course,
Drive later.
Yep.
and of course, at 4:30 today, we have the big matchup out in Seattle between the defending Super Bowl champions and the runners-up. In the Super Bowl last year, played the Meadowlands last year, in a very unthrilling Super Bowl. For most people, could have turned off the Super Bowl at halftime. And now they meet in Seattle, which should if it was hard for Denver to play Seattle and New Jersey, welcome to the bandbox that is Seattle, where no quarterback, including Aaron Rodgers, can seem to win in that place. And even Colin Kaepernick, who has tried several times to win in that place, just can't seem to find a way to get a win. Now Peyton Manning gets his shot to try and beat the 12th man out there in Seattle.
I don't think that it's going to be the drubbing you saw in the. I think it'll be a close game. I think we're talking a field goal separates this game, but I think Seattle wins. There's no. I just don't see the Broncos being able to lock them down. But I do think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be the steamroll that you saw in the Super Bowl.
I think this is going to be a close game as well. I think the Broncos obviously want to have some payback here. Peyton Manning obviously badly wants to come out and play a lot better than he did because a lot of his career, a lot of what he built up last year, and all the records about the Denver offense and all that kind of got flushed right down the toilet when he went up against that Seattle, the Legion of Boom. They're not going to have any mercy on him again. I like Seattle in this game, but I agree with Larry. I think it'll be a closer game, but I think Seattle pulls this game out.
I'm going to take Seattle. I think it can go one of 2 ways. It can either be a horrible drubbing type game where Seattle's defense is just on all game and Peyton Manning's off all game, or it's going to be a field goal.
I think nobody plays better under pure determination than Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Right? When he's determined to do something, nobody plays better than Peyton. And I think people are starting to realize, and I know they're still winning games, but I think people are starting to realize how to play Richard Sherman. And he's not going to move around the field. So Denver can move their...
And then they got Welker back.
Yeah.
So, for what it's worth.
People are learning how to play Richard Sherman. He only gave up 3 passes last week. Let's remember that. Everyone's talking about, they're figuring out how to play Richard Sherman. They're figuring out how to take advantage of him. It was 3 passes. None of them were big plays. None of them were touchdowns.
Because nothing's being thrown towards him. You can move your best receiver across the field, and he's not going to move across the field to cover him.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to actually go against the grain with this one. I'm actually going to go with... Yes. I'm actually going to go with Denver on this one. Seattle is extremely tough. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Denver losing this game, for all the reasons you guys just detailed. Seattle is extremely tough at home. And Seattle's also coming off a loss. And I thought it was kind of funny how after the loss, Denver kind of took some jabs at Seattle, knowing that they could poke the bear, and knowing who Seattle's next opponent was, their division rival, the Broncos. So I think that was kind of funny. kind of riling up the Seattle Seahawks, and then having Denver going into Seattle. And as I say, I would not be shocked at all to see Seattle win. But for some reason, something in the back of my mind is just telling me that Denver is just going to find some way, somehow, just find a way to just pull us out in Seattle and
see that happen. I was in Seattle this week. Everything is neon green, but they're also some of the most fair weather fans I've ever met. But because once the Seahawks aren't doing well, they'll just be back on the Mariners, and if the Mariners aren't doing well, we'll just lay low.
We'll start yelling for the Supersonics to come back.
There you go. Listen, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's one of the more, it's the premier game today, this afternoon. And, there's only 2 other 1 o'clock games going on. And, San Francisco, Arizona will be a good game, but everybody's going to be watching that Seattle Denver game.
And then, of course, on Monday Night Football, we have another interesting matchup between the New York Football Jets and the Chicago Bears. This should be a very interesting matchup because the Jets could be 2-0 if it wasn't for Marty Morningwig, who Eagle fans are well aware of, calling a timeout when their quarterback throws a touchdown to tie up the game late. But that's the way the Jets go. That's the way it goes for the Jets. Here comes here's a big opportunity for the Jets to get I would say a pretty sizable win at home. Off a very good opponent in my mind. I mean, the Bears are nothing if not good offensively. They may not be as good defensively, but both these teams have excellent defenses. So you look at this game and it may be 10-6.
Right. Well,
but except for the fact that the Bears may actually run it up like they did on the 49ers. So
and here's the problem for Chicago to win. Chicago needs to score a lot of points because they can give up a lot of points.
Especially with Charles Tillman out for the season.
Right. So maybe for his career, right?
Right.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not, because let me tell you something. Let me say this about Charles Tillman. He's probably one of the most underrated defensive players in the NFL. Nobody ever talks about him. I think he's certainly a Hall of Famer. And for him to end his career like this is going to be a travesty. And most people around the country will go, Charles who? It's just an incredible player. But, again, Chicago, in order to win, has to score a lot of points, and I don't know that you're going to score a lot of points on the Jets' defense. But the Jets are just an organization that is
unbalanced.
They're unorganized, right? They're bad. Organizationally.
Yeah.
They're bad, and that's why stuff like what happens last week happens. And Jay was part of some stuff that was going back and forth on my Facebook page.
That's right.
This week, and a lot of my friends are Jet fans, where the Jet fans are blaming the refs.
Refs did everything right.
Well, except that the only person who can call the timeout from the sideline is the head coach. But I understand. If
the ref had looked to see who was calling the timeout, and they ran the play, and something happened, everybody would be calling for the official's head anyway, and it would be worse than it is now.
100% correct. 100% correct. So all the Jet fans are saying it's the ref's fault. I think it was a good call on the ref's part. But Jet fans are
Jet fans,
right? And
they're snake bit.
Yeah. So and this always happens. I mean, go back to the Herm Edwards days, right? The Jets were the first organization in the NFL to employ a coach solely responsible for clock management. And the second week, they blow a game because of clock management that they hire this guy. So the Jets have just been organizationally a bad team, all right? And that's just the way they are.
And don't get into Tim Tebow and that kind of thing.
So, and this is why the Jets are in a position they've been in. They have had some very talented teams over the last few years. They just can't get it together. And that's just the way it is. And, as Jay has mentioned, they've got a great they had a great quarterback, right? And Mark Sanchez, that's what you're
He's
a great quarterback.
Absolutely. Took him to the AFC Championship game a couple of years. You know, and then the coordinator started changing, and now he's in a good offense that suits his abilities, and he's become a better quarterback.
Whenever we're talking about Mark Sanchez and people bring up that they went to an AFC Championship with them, just remember Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Just remember that Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
There you go.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl and then fallen off the face of the map again.
Trent Dilfer fell off the face of the map. He won a Super Bowl and then fell off the face of the map.
I wouldn't say Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. I would say Trent Dilfer didn't lose a Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was a game manager.
Did not lose playoff games.
Well, I think that
he was a game manager.
The second championship game, the second year they went to the championship game and lost the championship game, I think Mark Sanchez was a bigger part of that. The first year, I think his job was not to lose it. The second year, he was. I think he was more of a part of it. But he just wasn't a great one. He's
not at all.
But we also have some other games that I'm looking at on the schedule, and I'm looking at the 49ers game. And the reason I'm looking at the 49ers game is because the 49ers right now are 1-1. They lose today to the Arizona Cardinals.
They will.
And Jeff is saying they will. They will then be 1-2 and
facing Chip Kelly.
Next week.
But it'll be in San Francisco. So
but it'll be in San Francisco.
The brothers on opposite sides. That'll be interesting.
But again,
Palmer's out.
Palmer's out. I understand that, but the fact is, the 49ers secondary is ravaged. I mean, you saw in the second half the Bears just take the 49ers apart. The 49ers had a good lead in the game. They basically had the game salted away, and basically, Colin Kaepernick was not. Here's the problem, and what people have to realize about Colin Kaepernick. When Colin Kaepernick has to win the game for this team, he can't win the game for the 49ers because he's not a Russell Wilson. I hate to say it, but he's not a guy like Russell Wilson who's going to come back and do that. But he just doesn't have that. I mean, the 49ers in these 3 years that they've had have been built from the defense to the offense, meaning that the defense make plays and the offense capitalizes on the defense making plays. That's what happened in Week 1 against Dallas. The defense made plays early on in the game, and the 49ers took advantage of very short fields, went down there, scored touchdowns. When Colin Kaepernick has the ability to front run, when he has that ability, he's very good. I just don't think the 49ers are going to be able to score enough to be able to overcome what they really lack defensively right now. They're decimated. They're decimated.
And they're decimated. And to go back to some of the stuff we were talking
about.
And
McDonald should, and by the way, as a 49er fan, McDonald is the only guy right now that's left, and McDonald should not be on the field. So
right. Going back to that, that's exactly what I was just bringing up. That's the reason McDonald's playing, is because that defense is decimated. If it wasn't, McDonald would be benched.
No, I will say, I mean, he's a hell of, I admit that Harbaugh is like his brother in Baltimore is a heck of a coach. I mean, they met up in a Super Bowl. They played each other in a Super Bowl. I mean, they're two very good coaches.
Who turned out the lights? Which one of them turned out the lights?
Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis. But yeah, I mean, they're two very good coaches, but he just can't overcome right now defensively what's going on right now, and it could show against now again. The 49ers are probably still a little bit better than Arizona, but Arizona's been coming on, and Arizona right now I think is primed to I mean, this would be a big win for them to just beat the 49ers. They're in Arizona. I just feel that, I wouldn't shock me if the 49ers won, but it would surprise me if they did. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say Arizona wins. Close game. I mean, they should have won in Arizona last year, but the 49ers hit a field goal to win at the buzzer. So
there is one thing and only one thing working in the 49ers' favor, and that is the four of us sitting at this table could probably sack the Cardinals with how bad their offensive line is.
Right.
Yes.
But that's the only thing working in their favor. Because I think the Cardinals are going to win as well. I think Stanley's going to get the ball to Fitzgerald, and Fitzgerald's going to bail him out anytime something goes wrong. And I think the Cardinals will take it. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game, but I think the Cardinals are going to take it.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals beat a bad team last week in the Giants. And, and they beat the San Diego Chargers, which, I think we're still unsure as to who the Chargers are. So this is going to be a test for them, and then they go into a bye, right? And then they play Denver. So it's it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks for the Cardinals, and see if Carson Palmer can get healthy. But
Carson Palmer needs to be back though to beat the Broncos.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
they get there, they need Palmer back.
Right, Drew Stanton is not beating the Broncos. But
agreed.
I think that there's a good chance that Stanton can beat the 49ers.
Yeah, no question about it. As a 49er fan, I would like to see the 49ers come out and pull this game out, but I just think that, it's asking too much right now, this defense, to come out and bail. And plus the fact I just shudder when I see Colin Kaepernick having to bring this team back. I mean, last week he was a mess. I mean, he was fumbling the ball, throwing interceptions. It's just, it's a lot to ask for this. Not that they don't have playmakers on offense. I mean, the 49ers have playmakers on offense. Their offense isn't a big problem. But the fact is that their quarterback just doesn't seem to be able to make the play that he needs to make in the spot where he needs to make it. And when he is in that spot, he tends to throw an interception. So.
Yeah. Another interesting game is going to be tonight, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Steelers fan, because I'm actually trying to figure out, are my Steelers as bad as what we saw last week?
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's the case. I don't think that. I hope that's not the case. But again, I go back to Thursday night games.
Yeah.
Part of me hopes they're that bad. Part of me really hopes they're not that bad.
Right. So and I've been saying all along that I think Carolina is going to be a better team this year.
I think Carolina wins tonight. I think Carolina's defense will frustrate Roethlisberger enough. I mean, I know they're without Hardy. I understand that they're without their sack master, but that's still,
as bad as the Cardinals.
Right. So so even without Hardy in the mix for Carolina, I still like Carolina's defense, and you got to think that Cam Newton's going to make enough plays. I mean, he's going to make enough plays offensively to win. Sort of like Arizona being San Francisco to a certain extent. That Arizona will make just enough plays to Fitzgerald. I think Cam Newton will make enough plays down the field to beat the Steelers.
I think that Cam. I never ever picked against the Steelers. So, but I say Cam Newton is the younger Roethlisberger, right?
Right.
He's that big kid who can make plays with his feet, who can keep the play alive, who can have guys draped on him and run upfield. It just, he is the younger version of Roethlisberger. I'm interested in seeing this game tonight because I think this will show us, are the Steelers as bad as we saw last week?
I will not pick against the Steelers.
Right, because then he can't come home with me.
But I'm just saying, I like the Panthers' defense a lot. I like the Panthers' defense a lot more than I like the Steelers' defense. And one of the most underrated players is Starlord Alele, the defensive tackle for the Carolina Panthers. I think he's great, and that's going to hurt us. That's going to hurt the Steelers with their offensive line woes. And besides Antonio Brown, the Steelers just don't have the wide receivers to do everything.
We have a bunch of. I tend to agree with you. I think the Panthers are going to win. Now we have a bunch of 2-0. Yes.
I never said that.
Ethan didn't say it. So.
I think it would be a push.
It'll be a push.
That's because Ethan doesn't have his license yet and he needs a ride.
Exactly. And we're going to Brooklyn. I'd rather be stranded here in Brooklyn, and I know that's not going to happen.
Now we have a bunch of 2-0 teams. We have the Bills, who are facing the Chargers.
That's another interesting game.
Yeah.
It is.
That's another interesting game.
Will the Bills
Chargers.
remain undefeated?
Yes.
Wait, for now or in general?
For
For
now.
For
You know,
now.
that's-
Will
I think the
they
Chargers will win
remain
this game.
among the unbeatens?
I like Buffalo. They're home.
Hard question.
It's Buffalo at home, but I got the Chargers in this game.
I think I have to go with the Chargers. I mean, I won't be that surprised if the Bills win, but I'll be kind of surprised if the Bills win.
I just think the Chargers are kind of up and down. You know, I mean, they had a huge kind of win last week against Seattle. Now they got to travel all the way across the country and play a Buffalo Bills team that's playing well at this point.
In Yahoo Pick'em, in the Yahoo Pick'em League, 63% have picked San Diego.
Yeah.
That's just you know.
So, but I like the Bills at home.
See, here's the thing with the Bills. They are playing well against the odds. They shouldn't be playing well. They don't have anybody.
Right.
They lost their best player to free agency. Their starting right tackle was a 7th-round pick last year. E.J. Manuel hasn't shown anything yet. Their only good player right now is Sammy Watkins, and he's not even on the field consistently. So they shouldn't be winning, but somehow they are.
And if the Bills do pull this game out and win, they're going to be one of the big stories of the young NFL season. I mean, they're going to be right there.
Until they lose every other game.
Until they start losing.
True. I think the Bills could pull it out.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean,
We'll see how that goes.
yeah. The Bengals are among the unbeatens, and they are facing the Titans. Now, will the Bengals remain unbeaten?
Bengals easy.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think anybody's going into Cincinnati winning this year. I think they'll win every home game.
They're a 7-point favorite,
Yeah.
and I'm taking them. I'm taking them against the points.
Right.
Okay.
I've said
So
it before, I'll say it again. I love the Bengals. I think they're an amazing team. They're much better than they've performed in the past few years. I think this is the year that they show it.
okay, so I guess we're pretty much agreed that the Bengals will remain among the unbeatens. I shudder to announce the next game, but I will. The Houston Texans are among the unbeatens, and they are facing the New York Football Giants.
They stay unbeaten.
They stay
Of course they
unbeaten.
stay unbeaten.
Of course. I mean, there should be a different. Shouldn't there be like a different division for like the Giants, the Bucks, and the
Jaguars.
The Jaguars. I mean, shouldn't they like be able to play each other every week, and so one of them kind of gets a win? You know.
We'll go to the soccer system and
Yeah, I was thinking
relegation.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Relegation, like the bottom 3 or 4 teams go to the minor leagues, and the best 3 or 4 teams in the minors go up to the majors.
I was thinking the same thing.
I actually read a report
Yeah.
and took that completely seriously and explained all the reasons why that can't happen.
I just wonder if the Giants. I just wonder if the
Serious.
Giants will actually win a game this season. They probably will. I mean, they'll probably find a way to win a game.
Well, let me go through their schedule real quick here and see where they can win a game.
Now, here's the real question. If the Giants end up as the worst team in the league, do they draft a quarterback with the first overall pick?
Absolutely. I mean, I think at this
Mariota?
point, I think they have.
That's
I think
who it
they
would
have
be.
to draft Mariota. It would be a dumb move for them not to. I mean, Eli Manning is definitely on the downswing of his
Well,
career.
I'm looking at the Giants' schedule up until their bye week. I think they're going to lose to Houston. They could very well lose to Washington. They'll lose to Atlanta. They'll lose to
There you go. I love the sound of that.
And that's a Sunday night game. They have 2 Sunday night games. They should be flexed.
I'll tell you what, they these I want, and that's a point. I mean, they really
they
banked on the
Dallas.
Giants. They really banked. The Sunday night, there were a lot of primetime games for the Giants, and a lot of these networks are going to get hurt by having the Giants in primetime games.
But they could flex them, right, at some point.
I hope.
Maybe they beat Dallas
That's me.
before their bye week.
I'm looking at their season as a whole. I say they split with Washington and Dallas, so they win 1, they lose 1. So that gives them 2 wins. I think they'll beat I don't know. I'm taking that back. I don't think they're going to beat Jacksonville. I think they'll beat St. Louis, and Tennessee. That gives them 4 wins for the year. That's my prediction. 4-12.
See, Giant fans that are listening, Ethan is giving you 4 wins, so you have something there.
You have something, but I'm also.
That's right.
But he's also taking away by doing that, though. He's probably taking away your first overall draft pick. So
that probably go to Jacksonville.
That will go to Jacksonville. Yes.
And I'm saying that they're going to lose to Jacksonville. So I'm not going to say Jacksonville's going to have the top 5. Yes, not the top 5.
Okay, so. Do the Broncos remain? Now we discussed this previously. Just to finalize everything, do the Broncos remain among the unbeatens?
No.
Maybe. I'm split. It's really hard to choose this game for me.
No, I think they're going to lose to Seattle.
They lose to Seattle. Yeah.
So the Broncos drop out. Do the Eagles remain among the unbeatens?
Sadly, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
They should be unbeaten now. They should have lost to the Colts. But
okay.
But they're playing Washington. I mean, at home in their bill. I mean, they should be able to.
And
that's my pick for the first overall pick. Washington's going to have the first overall pick.
Okay.
Draft. That's my prediction.
So what do they do? Do they take Mariota?
No,
I don't know.
No, they add
they
a pass rusher.
Yeah, a pass rusher.
And last but not least, we discussed this before. Do the Panthers remain among the unbeatens?
Yes.
Yes.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
And
I say no.
And well, I would expect you to say no.
I am a diehard. If nothing else, I'm loyal.
There you go.
I'm a diehard realist, which is it's kind of hard to be both, but that's why I'm going with no comment.
And in my house, right?
Okay. Okay. Now flipping the coin real quick. At the closing of our show, we saw that the Jaguars remained among the winless teams this year, losing to the Colts. Now, do the Raiders remain among the winless teams? They are facing the Patriots.
Absolutely. They get annihilated by New England today.
I'm taking the points on them.
Aren't they like the 27,000 point favorite?
14 points.
Close enough. Yeah.
So you think that New England's going to beat them by more than 2 touchdowns?
It's going to be close. Yeah.
I'm Drew isn't playing.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So
they have no offensive line. The defense is crap.
I'm taking them with the points.
I'm going to say I don't know who I took in that. I might have to change.
I think Brady's going to rev up the offense.
I'm taking the Patriots.
I'm taking the Patriots with the ball. I think they're going to rev it up. I think they're going to rev up the machine.
So the Raiders remain winless for another week.
Plus the fact the Patriots are a suicide pick this week.
Now the question is, does Andy Reid break into the win column and defeat the Miami Dolphins in Miami?
No.
Or does he remain winless?
No, he wins.
No, he loses.
He wins.
Loses. I just, I just think that this was, I'm off the bandwagon of the Chiefs. I don't know whether Charles is playing or not. I think it's a game time decision whether Charles is actually going to play. Not that it matters because Andy Reid, as we know, doesn't run the football. But again, Miami's not terrible. They're not terrific, but they're not terrible. I think the Chiefs are in for a bad year. So if I'm gonna if I'm gonna move into that category, this is a game that I think Miami finds a way of pulling out and winning over Andy Reid.
I'm not completely off the Chiefs. I am going to say halfway through the season when we redo our Super Bowl picks, they will not be my picks.
I think Kansas City pulls this game out.
I'm going with that, though. I think they're winning today.
So, Jay, what do you think?
I think Miami has looked relatively not the greatest, but okay. The Chiefs, I think, are just totally banged up at this point, and I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins pulling this out, and Andy Reid remains winless on the season in this one.
You just don't like Andy Reid.
Yeah.
No, I actually.
I don't mind Andy Reid. I just think that he's in a bad situation this year.
I think a lot of it has to stem with his Big loss in the playoffs.
And as a 49er fan, I'm not a fan of Alex Smith. So, I don't like Alex Smith. So.
Yeah, but that's the 49ers' fault. They should have taken Aaron Rodgers.
And I don't think the Chiefs have recovered from that. So, I'm going to take Miami on that, and I'll say that Andy Reid remains winless on the season. We already said that the Giants are going to remain winless for another week.
Oh, yeah.
Will the Saints break into the win column finally? They are going to be playing the Vikings.
Minnesota.
They are up in Minnesota. Will the Saints finally get a win?
Yes.
I think they win big.
And
win big. They're home.
Oh,
I'm
not winning big.
They're giving up 10 points.
They're not winning big.
And I'm taking the Saints.
They might win, but they're not winning big. Cordell Patterson is going to blow up. I promise you. Cordell Patterson.
That's because Cordell Patterson's on his fantasy team.
Okay.
Could be.
Before he was on my fantasy team, I loved him. My dad always talked about how angry I got during the 2013 draft. That's because they took Jarvis Jones, and I wanted them to take Cordell Patterson.
All right. Well, I think New Orleans wins, and they win by more than 10 points.
So enjoy your football, everybody, on this Sunday afternoon. Take some time out and watch that game at 4:30. I think it's going to be a great game. So have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you back next week. I will not be here, but Jay will be here.
I will be here next week.
Jay's flying solo.
I will be flying solo next week. Remember to find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Sports Skillet. Thanks, everybody.
And stay tuned for the
Kevin Storm Show.